we are going to do something that I actually think is a little unconventional. This is not your normal planning for 2026. We're planning for the new year is flawed. We're going to talk about installing our operating system. The first thing I want to do is I want to talk about the difference between goals and an operating system. Goals are critically important. I've seen the data. I understand the point that every self-help guru has ever made. If you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there type of thing? Great. And I imagine you're probably pretty good at goal setting. The type of people that would show up to a webinar on New Year's Eve to plan 2026 have no problem with goal setting, right? Like goal setting and visioning, I imagine, are probably a superpower of yours. I think every human is born a dreamer, and maybe that's beat out of us a little bit as kids, but goal setting isn't difficult. The real issue with goal setting is we treat it as though it's something it's not. Goal setting is the map, and a lot of people try to drive the map. Goals are the map of where you want to go, but they're not a vehicle. So goals are important, yes, but we have to make sure that we're treating them for what they are. If you want to get from LA to New York and you buy a map of the United States and then you just sit there and stare at the damn map, you're just going to be depressed that you're not moving. Goals fail because they're not a vehicle. They compare your current reality to your ideal. Now, you want that. You want to know where you want to go. And the map is actually not extraordinarily relevant once it's defined, right? Especially when we're talking broad. It's like, all right, I need to drive east. And until I get to, past the highway or whatever, I don't really need to tell where my off-roads are. We do that with goal setting. I think we try to treat them as though they're something that they're not. So again, I'm not bashing goals. I hope nobody misunderstands me. I think the map is critically important. And I think you're already probably pretty good at it. So don't think anything I'm going to say here takes away or diminishes or eliminates the need for goals. But what I want to do is I want to help us all build a vehicle that allows us to execute on the goals consistently and with safety nets that protect us from the beginning of year fervor. Because this motivation that everybody feels, or the tension or the pressure, that goes away. And that's historically been true. So we're not going to do a goal setting session. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I actually had somebody inside of X Freedom volunteer to do their own proprietary version of goal setting, which I'd love to see. That's coming. It will be free, like all my content. But what I want to do now is I want to install an operating system. The reason we need an operating system is because when conditions change, the map doesn't save you. The map is the map is the map is the map. The goals are the goals. But life's going to change. Honestly, the second most impactful thing that can happen is negative things. The first most impactful thing that can happen that you aren't prepared for are positive things. And I actually think that's what we're looking at on the horizon. We're looking at an ecosystem where so much opportunity comes so quickly. If you have a map and you're following the map and you're not paying attention to the changing landscape, you're not going to be able to seize it. So the goals are important, but the goals aren't the hard part. The goals aren't the hard part, the vehicle is. So we're going to build the vehicle, and we're going to build the vehicle right now. My hope is in the next hour and 53 minutes, y'all walk away with a vehicle to accomplish your most important goals. And that's the paradigm that I'd like you to assume, incidentally, and what's nice about this is a vehicle that will continue to yield results even after the goal is accomplished. So it's not myopic in scope. We're going to build our operating system. So in order to build our operating system, we have to have the proper paradigm. Everybody has to be more or less on the same page. And if you don't agree with anything I said, by the way, good. If two people agree on everything, one of them is unnecessary. So please be necessary to you. My hope is you can take some value away, and if for everything else, just toss it, right? It's like, oh, this works for me, and that doesn't. I'm not going to use that. Awesome. Love that. Calibrate to your needs. My question for you, from a cost of admission standpoint, everything that you do in life has a cost of admission. Everything you do in life has a cost of admission. Really, though, the cost for our most important goals, the cost for success is one thing. So I might ask, and I'd love for you to participate and actually pretend like you're here, because otherwise you could just watch a recording. Drop it into the chat. What is the fuel for success? What is the fuel for success? Another way to think about this is, what is the cost for your goals? What is the thing you have to pay for everything you want? Brian Neff showing up. Love that. Consistency. Here we go, Jason. Time. Matthew, time. Sissy, no fear. Consistency. Your mental energy, time, attention, effort, and grit. What you say no to. I love that answer, dude. You're just smarter than me, Lee. You're too philosophical. Seeing my impact, discipline, coffee. That's true. The cost for success is time. Time is your most important resource. Naval Ravikant says money is a store of time. And if you really think about that philosophically, it's true. You pay money, excuse me, You work for money so that you can later pay money in exchange for time. I'm going to give you money and you're going to give me the coffee that it would have otherwise taken me. And if you really think about that, by the way, it's an extraordinary trade most of the time. And so this time encapsulation that we've discovered, let's say, as a society, is an efficient exchange. The problem with efficiency is it cuts both ways. Efficiency cuts both ways. Now, talking to you, take your entrepreneurial hat off for just a moment. Put your you hat on and realize that the exchange of time for money works against whoever's giving the time, obviously, right? I wouldn't give you money to do something for me unless it benefited me and was more valuable to me than to you. That's the exchange. You're actually basically selling dollars at a discount. So I get my $8 latte and you might be like, God, $8 for a latte is really expensive. Not if I have to go to Guatemala for it. Imagine that within the confines of whatever it is that you do. You're a software engineer, you're a radiologist, you're an Uber driver. It doesn't matter. If you're trading your time for money, you're losing that trade. Now that's okay. That's a trade that you have to make sometimes in order to fill up the coffers, right? We got to pay rent. But what I'd like you to focus on is the idea that right now, and y'all tell me if you disagree with this, I'd actually really love to know, we are trained to sell our time to others. We're not trained to use our time on our own behalf. And at a certain point, you can earn yourself out of the gravitational pull that is the need for money. But until then, you're still selling your time. We're selling our time. We're selling our time. The issue with that, it's not that it's bad. It's what happens with the time that we don't sell. How does everybody use their time? If you think, oh, I'm going to take me time. What is me time really? Me time is almost always watching TV, leisure, rest, relaxation, travel. But me time's not, it's not working on your goals. It's not doing the things most important to you. So you have two distributions of time. You have times that you sell to somebody else, which is extraordinarily efficient for them. And then you have times that you Netflix and chill. Where's the rest of the time? Where's the rest of the time? 100% of your value producing time is being used to produce value on behalf of someone else. That should infuriate you, right? Pisses me off. And by the way, you can use this on the other end. This is what employers do. It's not evil, it's not pernicious, or maybe it is, and it's a system we're all locked into. I pay people. Gina's on this call. She's my EA. She's brilliant. I love her to death. She's amazing. She's smart. She's thoughtful. She's conscientious. She's creative. The amount of money I pay her pales in comparison to the value I get. That's just what it is. Why would I do it otherwise, right? As an employer, you can benefit from other people's time. As somebody whose time is being sold, I'm asking you to start using your time for yourself. If you want real freedom, if you want really to accomplish your goals, we need to build an operating system that allows you access to your own time. I think I've beat that horse to death. Let's keep going. So this is the beginning of what we need. Everything you have listed on your goals has a price tag in time. Everything. I want to lose weight. I want to go to Tahiti. I want to be a better spouse. I want to be a better father. I want to start my business. It all has a price tag in time. We don't think about that though, do we? We just dream, right? We just dream. But what if we want to really accomplish the goals? I'm not telling you not to dream. I'm telling you to build an operating system that allows you to accomplish those dreams. And what's really cool is when we do this, it compounds. It compounds. And if you've ever seen, those graphics that show you the miracle that is compound interest, I think it was Einstein who says that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world or something. There's somebody find that quote for me. Time is the cost of admission for all your goals. All of your goals have a cost and the cost of time. So what we're going to do is we're going to build containers for success. This is the operating system, by the way, and this is what we're going to build right now today, and we're going to do it. And about y'all, this is going to be uncomfortable. We're going to start to get to a point. I'm going to watch the participants on the call drop because I'm going to start to ask you to do stuff. You're like, I don't know. I know I need to do that, Kasim, but I'm not ready for it. Okay, so just know that this is about to be the type of thing. This is tough love. You don't need more goals. You need an operating system. The operating system that we are going to use, I call containers, and I call them containers for a specific reason. And it may or may not resonate. That's okay. Like I said at the beginning, take what works, discard what doesn't. Containers are spaces. A container is space that you allow yourself to take up that will be used, I promise you, but is protected in a way that doesn't allow other people to infringe upon. Containers hold space. That's all a container is. And I want you to think about something. Think about your garage or your storage unit or your closet. It doesn't matter. Think about a space. Think about a place where things are meant to be stored. And then think about that place with all the junk that you have in life just being smashed into it. You're just smashing a bunch of stuff into your closet or into a storage container into a garage, and realize that that is more or less how we live with our time. If that storage unit is your calendar and all that junk is the stuff that's constantly being shoved into it, every time somebody's like, "Hey, can you help me move? Hey, I need you on this call. Hey, do you have time for a quick chat?" Now it's like, oh, let me just shove more things into this storage unit. And we're never going to stop that, by the way. You can try if you want to. You can go live on a desert island, and I swear to God, the pelicans will find a way to occupy your time. The way to protect yourself is you go to Costco and I got these tubs because my garage was a mess. I go to Costco and they were $8. It was a phenomenal deal. I don't know how Costco makes money. They're these great big black tubs with yellow lids. A lot of you know what I'm talking about. And I bought a bunch of them and I just put them in the garage and they were empty. But then like Halloween came around and I bought my kids a whole haunted house on Craigslist. And when we were done, I was like, oh shit, I can put those in the container. Like I had a container set aside that protected this space. And suddenly it was like, I know where to put this. And I have this ready for me. These containers, you can do the same thing for yourself. You can protect your time and your space using containers that we're going to predefine on this call. On this call, here are my rules for containers. You don't have to follow my rules, by the way. These are my rules. You can create your own rules. But I've thought about this. So maybe suspend disbelief a little bit and listen to my rules, and then you can decide how it is that you might modify. Rule number one, containers are sacred to a degree of religious fervor. This is your time. You do not set time aside for yourself. Society has not taught you to do that. Our parents didn't teach us to do it. School didn't teach us to do it. Our employers sure as shit don't want us to do it. This is your time, and this time is sacred. Sacred. I don't think there's a better word than that. It's sacred. And the only way you're going to serve people is if you're at your best. So you might think to yourself, being self-sacrificial, y'all, helps nobody. It helps nobody. Because if you're like, oh no, I need to show up for my kids, I need to show up for my spouse, I need to show up for my employees, great. If you're showing up at 20%, that's what they get. But if you set a little bit, that's the other thing that's really interesting about containers. A little bit of time takes you from 20 to 80. Tell me that's not true. Tell me that's not true. A little bit of time on a regular basis takes you from 20% to 80%, and now you can show up for everybody. Abraham Lincoln has a great quote. It's really worth spending some time thinking about because it applies to everything. He said, if I have 4 hours to cut down a tree, I spend the first 3 hours sharpening the axe. You're the axe, right? You're the axe. And I'm not even asking you for 75% of the time. I'm asking you for a little bit of time. You'll see how little coming up. Spoiler alert. Anyone who threatens your container is crossing a boundary. And these, by the way, are people that you love. I was in business with somebody like this. I loved this man to death. He's one of my best friends in the world still to this day. He's a gem of a human. And this is what makes him so successful. If he needs something done, he's going to get it done now. And it doesn't matter what you're in the middle of. And it caused some tension. I actually reorganized the way that we officed in order to attend to this. Anybody who crosses your boundary, anybody who threatens your container is crossing a boundary. That doesn't mean that we can attend to them in ways that are empathic and loving. And I'll show you how to do that. I actually have some templates written for you here. Rule number 2, containers are empty. That's my rule for this call, and I'm going to explain why. And then again, you could break whatever rules you want to break. Containers are time-based, not goal-based. So your goal is, I want to go to the gym. All right, great. And that's such an easily broke. If I were a terrorist that wanted to bring down your goals, it would be so easy for me to bring down gym. You know what I mean? Like there's so many steps between now and gym. It's like going to bed on time, waking up on time, getting dressed, making sure the kids are okay. And I want your containers, for the sake of this call, to be empty. Time-based, not goal-based. Containers default to minimal viable effort. You're not asking anything of yourself other than setting this time aside. There's a reason for this, which we'll get to. And there's no outcome attached to containers. That's what empty means. Again, yet. We'll get to the idea that you're going to fill these containers with something that's valuable for you, but right now this is the operating system. And the operating system is light, right? These are the empty tubs from Costco. Rule number 3 is containers are resilient. And this is going to be one of the hardest parts. Every container will be disrupted, guaranteed. Every container needs a backup plan. If something happens to your container, it needs to be updated. And we're going to do this. We're going to define our backup plans together. So containers are what? Sacred, empty, resilient. Each of those is going to come into play as we create our containers. So we're going to create our containers on this call. I've set aside about 30 minutes to try to get through my slides. And so far, I'm doing pretty good. We're going to create daily containers, weekly containers, monthly containers. Now, are those the only types of containers? No, absolutely not. You can have lots of different types of containers. I think those are the most important. And I think those are the most important because, to be honest with you, that's what we've seen in all the extraordinary successes in the world. If you read the success literature of which I've read all of it, which isn't a brag, by the way, it's actually like at a certain point, just stop reading and start doing. This is the routine that we're offered. Remember, containers are empty by default. There's no outcome attached. They're time-based, not goal-based. Here's what's really fun though, is containers don't need to be big. They can be as little as 60 seconds, I swear to God. There's no container too small. There's no container too small. But if it's full before it starts, it's not a container, it's a task list. That's why I want your containers to be empty. Your containers need to be empty. Some quick notes, some housekeeping, and I know I'm moving fast, but I want to make sure we have enough time to actually do the work. Containers are load-bearing. They're load-bearing. Think about a building. They're a load-bearing pillar. They're not decorative. That means we can't have a billion containers. They're load-bearing. So where I said there's no such thing as a container too small, I'm talking to the single mom who works a night shift at a hospital, right? You can have small containers, but that doesn't mean that we necessarily need a lot of them. You can have as many as you want. I can tell you, since I've achieved financial freedom, I have way more containers than most people can afford to have. I have my entire Monday is blocked off. I give myself 3 to 4 hours most weekdays to do deep work. That's a luxury. That's a rich person's luxury. You might not be in that position. That's okay. I still want you to define these containers and realize that they can be as small or as big as they need to be, but they're load bearing. This is where all your dreams live, right? This is where everything that you're going to do has a cost of time. What time? This is the time that we're defining. So our goal isn't to maximize the number of containers, it's to identify it's the Pareto distribution, the 20% of the work that will do 80% of the impact. Here's a question for you that everybody's been exposed to on a regular basis since you were born. What is the ideal setup for daily containers? Pythagoras, who developed the Pythagorean theorem, and incidentally was more of a religious leader than he was a scientist, and also had a weird thing against beans. Two quotes from the same guy, and you might be like, all right, that's one dead guy. Great. So did Seneca, so did Marcus Aurelius, so did Epictetus, so did Plutarch, so did St. Augustine, so did Benedict of Nursia, so did Confucius, Benjamin Franklin, James Clear, the Bible, Islam, Buddhism, and Mr. Rogers. This is the ubiquitous truth across religion, philosophy, science, morning and evening. Set the system, clear the system. They don't need to be big, but I believe very strongly you need these two containers at a minimum. You need a morning container. You need an evening container. So saith everybody that's ever accomplished anything. And again, go back and read the success literature. Do me the favor of reading the success literature. Interestingly, they did a multivariate, multi-year study across thousands of extraordinary successes. People like Nobel Prize laureates, professional athletes, authors. And what they discovered was really interesting. There weren't many common denominators. There weren't many. I think the single biggest common denominator was exercise. But the second was morning. A morning routine, having any morning routine. So we're going to create your containers. Now, you don't have to follow my rules, but I'm just letting you know what I think the ubiquitous truth is and should be. So I believe you should have a morning and an evening container. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. Time will tell. But what we are going to do is we're going to define our containers. And I have 4 minutes to spare, by the way. I got through this 4 minutes faster than I thought I would. And we're going to work on what I call our core containers. So what I'm about to drop in the chat is called the core container worksheet. This is the core container worksheet. So you've made a copy of the core container worksheet, and now we're going to go through this sheet together. Y'all, I spent more time than I care to tell you on this. So again, throw all my rules out, but suspend disbelief for just a moment, if you don't mind. We're gonna define containers that you would build if nothing was in the way. So this isn't practical. This isn't a practical exercise yet. It's not what's convenient. It's not what will work. This is about ideal architecture. So what I want you to do is I want you to pretend that you are sitting with God or spirit or source or whatever you want to call the entity that controls the world. You are sitting with God. And God's like, hey, Atiba, what do you want your day, your week, your month to look like? And you're like, dude, if I didn't have to worry about anything else, if I didn't have to worry about kids or spouse or employees or whatever, these are my core containers. There's a reason we're doing it this way, okay? So, and remember, they're sacred, they're empty, they're resilient. So we're going to suspend reality, forget jobs, forget everything, and we're going to focus on what's best for you. When have you done that ever? In the history of your life, when have you ever really put you first? And again, they're going to be flexible, but for now, let's talk ideal architecture. So remember, across biology, science, philosophy, religion, and culture, one daily architecture appears again and again and again and again and again. What's the architecture? Morning container, evening container. This is what I want from you right now. If the world were perfect, name your container. Christine Marie on this call, she calls her morning container vertical alignment. She gets aligned with the superordinate principle. For her, that's God. It's beautiful. The way that she does it is beautiful. Name your container. When you name something, you take ownership of it. You might go Goggins with it. And you might call it Taking Souls. I don't know if y'all have read his books. They're amazing, by the way. And he talks about taking souls. I love it, especially the way that he thinks about anything that gets in his way. He's like, I'm going to take that thing's soul. And it's such a, it really does. I'm getting fired up right now just thinking about it. You might want to be softer. Might want to be philosophical. Whatever it is, name it. Name it. Make it yours. Make it your thing. Name your morning container. You might want to finding love. This is one of the reasons that I asked you for your word for 2026. Maybe that's it. My word for 2026 is peace. I'm going through some health issues right now. I went through a divorce. It was horrible. I just want 2026 to be peaceful. I don't need to be more successful. I don't even need more money. I just want peace. Name your morning container. Once you've named your morning container, define the location if applicable. I would encourage you to be flexible here. Because remember, life is going to change. You're going to travel, you're going to go on vacation, something's going to go wrong. So locations aren't always required, but sometimes they're necessary depending on your context in your life. Name the location for your morning container. And then you're going to define, again, ideal, suspend disbelief. What's your ideal start time? If the world were perfect and kids never got sick and nobody ever called you, what would your ideal start time for this container be? And what would your ideal duration be? Joe Dispenza says his ideal start time is 4 a.m. and his ideal duration is 2 hours. God, can you imagine? 2 hours every single day at 4 a.m. And some of you are like, yeah, dude, I do that. Great. This is awesome. When you've defined your name, your location, your start time and duration, what I'd really love from you, and I'm going to offer everybody a couple of minutes to do this one because the morning, by the way, is the most important. I need to know why this matters. Why does it matter? And you're like, you can give yourself the reason that you're going to stick to something like this. Or you can just sit there and wait for the time to be up. What's the name of your container, the location, the start time, the duration, and then most importantly, why does this matter? Why does it matter? What are the goals that you're reaching for? What happens if you don't get it? Tommy Schaefer, this matters. It reminds me to stay out of my own way and others too. Christina Hooper, Blue Hour. Of course it is. I love that so much. Christina Hooper is the girl in blue. I didn't know that about the photography term. I use this time to spend time alone before the kids are awake, after the husband has gone to work, and I can do whatever I want before starting my day. Y'all, these are amazing. I'm blown away. I really love what you said, Ron. Reminds me who I am and what I'm capable of. Jason, the energy of life and source is so much better when I do this on a regular basis. Y'all, these are stunning. All right, y'all. Is everybody more or less on board with the morning container idea? I believe very strongly your morning container is the most important container. That's not to diminish the evening container. And what I will say is your evening container is usually the first one to go. So we created our morning container. We're going to do the exact same thing to our evening container. And where our morning container is the most important container from a productivity standpoint, that might be the mentality that you want to assume. Your evening container protects your morning container. Your evening container is the first container to go. Usually, when you have a bad morning, it's because you had a bad evening. When I say usually, I mean 99% of the time. So while it's easy to think about your evening container as, let's say, disposable, because it's not as important, quote unquote, it protects that which is most important, which by proxy kind of makes it most important, doesn't it? In this fun game of mental gymnastics that I'm playing to try to convince you that the evening container is also important, they're symbiotic in a way that's very difficult to divorce from each other. So we're going to do the exact same thing with your evening container. You're going to name it. I love Turn Down for What. That's probably the most creative name I've ever heard. You're going to define the location if applicable. Location might be a little bit more applicable to evening container. You might say like, hey, I got to be home. If you're one of those folks that's just always being tempted out, you might say, I need to be home or I need to be in my room. You can apply other rules to containers, by the way. The rule that I'd love to apply in my home is screens off. I'd love screens to be off 2 hours before we go to bed. My friend, if y'all know Dmitry Smirnov, he keeps talking about blue light and red light and all sorts of lights. And he finally has me convinced that light matters. But we're going to define our evening container. Name the container, define your location if applicable. What's the ideal start time and the ideal duration? Y'all, this could be 5 minutes. My evening container is not long. It's about 15 minutes. I do a little bit of journaling. I track my habits. I do some stretching. I go to bed. This isn't meant to stress you out. It's meant to hold space. And once we have that, I'd love for you to define why it matters to you and drop it into chat. I always hate being on calls when I'm waiting for the dead space, but there's also the temptation of just filling the space as the moderator. So I'll fight that. This practice helps me sleep better, actually rest my mind, and stops me from working on the problems from the previous day while I try to pass into dreamland. Y'all, these are beautiful. Y'all, these are the two most important containers that we can have. Here's the thing that I'll posit. If this is all we get done, this is the only thing we do, is we define our morning and our evening container and we install them. I think we have a better operating system for 2026 than if you haven't done this, than we would have otherwise. Now, we're not done. very important to note. We're not done. These are the containers that I would posit we use to buttress. And interestingly, smaller containers, I think, for morning and evening are better. I've done the thing. You can go to my Instagram right now. In 2023, I woke up every single morning at 4 a.m. I did a 39-degree cold plunge sauna workout. I wrote 1,000 words. I published all of them in a book called The Book of Threads. It was about 2.5 hours. I did it every day for 365 days. And there's something about it that I swear to God, it made me less successful that year. Because by the time I was done that morning, I was fried. I was mentally fried, physically fried, emotionally fried, psychologically fried. I had nothing left. I felt mechanized in a way, and I attributed too much to those mechanisms and not enough to what I wanted to do. I think smaller containers are stronger. And that I think that's actually I'm not a physicist, but I'm going to play physics for just a minute. I think it's technically true. Like if you have the same amount of material, the more you spread into trying to create a larger container, the easier that material is to crush. Right? So I think smaller containers can be stronger. So it's okay to have a 20-minute morning routine and a 15-minute evening routine. As a matter of fact, I think that's going to be the easiest thing for you to protect. Now we're going to keep going. Additional daily containers. Please, please, please be careful here. I don't have a job, so I have a daily deep work container. I have that luxury. Not to brag, it's just a practical reality of my life. You might be like, dude, I can't afford any more containers than 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening. That's okay. This is the balance of risks. Here's what I will say to you, though. For those of you who have flexibility in your life for whatever reason, entrepreneurially or otherwise, if you can carve a daily container of deep work, into your life, and this is an empty container, by the way. When I say deep work, I'm not telling you to put anything into it. If you can carve a daily container into your life, I swear to God, you'll be the most successful person in your circle 365 days from today, because nobody does this. What makes you the most amount of money? And goes around the circle. Everybody defines what makes them the most amount of money. All right, I want you to tell me, how much time did you spend on that task last month? And y'all, it's every single time it's the same. Every single time it's 0 to a couple of hours. I've decided if I'm not creating content, if I don't create content, what am I doing? Everything that I want to do in my life lives on top of this foundation of creating content. You probably have that thing that if you're not doing it, what are you doing? This is why you may have additional daily containers. Now, I want to be really, really, really careful with daily containers because they're breakable. So we may reserve this for weekly, but for those of you that have the luxury, define your additional daily container. Remember that they're sacred. But you might say, from noon to 2, I'm not doing anything but calls. If you're in sales, Brian, who's on this call, by the way, one of the best salesmen I've ever known, if you're in sales, you don't make money unless you're calling, right? If you have one of those things, and again, containers are empty. So we're going to talk a little bit, and I'm sort of letting some of the cat out of the bag. I'd love for you to define your additionally daily containers. And once you're done, and this might be time that you work off hours, we're going to move into weekly. Now, I have the bad habit of hyperbolizing things. And so I'm going to try not to do that. I think that your morning and your evening containers are your sentries. They're your bodyguards. They're the protectors that stand outside the gates of your time, and they make sure the world can't encroach upon you. I think that they're so important in that way. I think your weekly container or containers, this is your creation time, and we need to create. So for people that don't have the luxury of a daily container, which by the way is most people, this is where execution and creation is going to exist. And there's data to this too, by the way. The number is 4 hours. If you've read about maker time versus manager time, and it's funny because the entire economic world is built around manager time. Why? Because managers build the calendars. Manager time is broken down into 30-minute increments. And it's like, oh, we're doing meetings. The issue with that is makers need 4 hours in order to make anything. Think about anything you've ever made in your life, from, putting a puzzle together to writing a book to coding software. The 4-hour block lets you steep in it. You got to get in it. You have to prime yourself intellectually and psychologically, and you have to really, really, really dive deep. And you have to be into it for an hour or two before you really start to get performative, right? And then any interruption is just devastating because, and there's data on that, I forgot what it is, but I think it's 23 minutes per interruption to get back to the point of efficiency that you were at. I bet you Atiba knows that. It's 23 minutes. Yeah, I thought so. It's 23 minutes. Every interruption, no matter what the interruption, it might be a notification on your phone. So this weekly container, the daily and evening containers are your sentries. They're your bodyguards. This weekly container, I need one from you. There has to be one, y'all. And if you can't get 4 hours, get 2. If you can't get 2 hours, get 1. If you can't get an hour, get 30 minutes. There has to be time. Here's the other thing, and I'm going to say something that's going to sound so caustic. If you can't do this, you don't get goals. You don't Because the price of admission is time. Where's the time for your goals? This is what I need from you. So if you're like, I want to write a book, I want to create a course, I want to start a business, I want to do whatever it is that you want to do, you need to attribute time in order to accomplish your goals. All of your goals have a cost of admission and time. I'm asking you to set that time aside. So let's define your weekly container. I'd love to see 4 hours from you if you have that luxury. If you don't, I'd love to see two. If you can't, I'd love to see one. If you can't, you know what I mean? Like, come with me as far as you can go. And some people, by the way, are in tough spots. My mom was blind. She was blind in her right eye. She had tunnel vision in her left eye. She worked at a call center, and we would leave the house at 5 a.m. She'd drop us off at daycare right when they opened. There was this lady, her name was Vanjie. She was a Vietnamese immigrant, and she was the cook at kindercare. And she used to let my mom drop us off early. Like kindercare wasn't even open. And then my mom worked until 7 p.m. and then she'd drive home, she'd pick us up. So if I'm talking to my mom right now and I'm asking her for 4 hours a week, she's like, I don't have it. I don't have it. I'm a blind single mother on Social Security disability, but maybe she's got 30 minutes. My mom always wanted to write. She'd have been an amazing, amazing, amazing writer. And what I would not have given if my mom carved out 30 minutes a week to sit down and just write a little. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter to a degree how much is encroaching upon you. If you don't carve off a little time to yourself, you're going to end up with you don't want to die with your song inside you. This weekly container is so important because this is where you get to sing that song, right? That was a little more poetic than I promise I'll ever get again. We need this weekly container. This is where we're going to dive deep. So what's the name of the container? What's the name of your song? What is it that you're going to bring to the world? This weekly container is your creation block, y'all. This is the one. This is it. Name the container, own it. Name the location if applicable. If you're a painter, you got to paint in your studio. Be in the freaking studio. You know what I mean? If you're a composer, you got to be in front of a piano. Like, where do you need to be potentially? What's the ideal day? I block Mondays. I don't take meetings Mondays, period, full stop. And every now and again, if that needs to be, well, we'll talk about that in just a little bit. What's the ideal day, the ideal time window, and the ideal duration? If you can give me 4 hours, imagine that. Imagine 4 hours a week. What's 52 times 4? Is that 108? Yeah, I went to public school. When was the last time anybody contributed 208 hours to that which mattered most to them? You know what I mean? Like, imagine that. Imagine how weaponized we'd be. Primary container, and I'd love for you to just define what does this container give you that daily ones do not. The reason you're defining this is because it's easy to let the weekly ones go if you know you've got your bodyguards set up. We don't want to do that. If you have the luxury, and only if you have the luxury, you can define 2 or more. Modify the sheet, break my rules. As many weekly containers as you want to create. Now your monthly container. This is your reset. Interestingly, the monthly containers, I think, can be pretty short. What I'd love from you monthly, the problem with habits, and I've studied habits my entire life. I'll show you my habit tracking sheet. Like, y'all, I've gotten insane. I really have gotten I've gone off the rails. As a matter of fact, I'd like to show you that just because you can see how neurotic I've been. Let me see if this is the one. This is great. So this isn't my first iteration of this, by the way. I've been doing this since I was 19 years old. This is from 2019. I used to track everything in my life from how I felt physically and mentally in the morning and evenings to, you can see my gratitude journal schedule. I wanted to give something to somebody every day. I had a core habit I was cultivating, the most important thing that I would do that day. All my subsequent habits, which were scored, by the way. This is how I'd calculate my daily score. Like, I got obsessive with tracking habits. The problem with obsessively tracking habits is you start to run the script without remembering why you run the script. Remember, there's the map and there's the vehicle. Well, the vehicle, if your foot is on the gas, the vehicle's going to go. What I like about the monthly container is it allows us to calibrate against the map. The monthly container lets us come back and be like, am I headed in the right direction? Is there anything that needs to be changed? Is there anything that needs to be updated? Is there anything that I need to modify? So what I'd love for you to do is define your monthly container. This is where you're just going to stop and look back and look forward. It's a quick look back and it's a quick look forward. It could be an hour. You know what I mean? Honestly, it could be 30 minutes if you want it to be. It's whatever feels good to you. It's just some time aside. I like the beginning of the month personally. And I know there's a psychological difference for me. The 31st of the month is, let me look at everything that I sucked at. The first of the month is, let me look at everything I'm going to do. And then I can look back and be like, what could I improve upon? That's my opinion. Define your monthly container. This is our monthly reset. If you want more than one, I realize, again, everybody's a little bit different. That's okay. You can define more than one. Name your container, a location if applicable, date, time, and duration. And then what's your core purpose? What is the thing that you need to accomplish in this container, potentially? Wow, I didn't see this, Samson. This is great. When what you do every day matches what you want for the whole week, you win. That's beautiful. Can you share that active daily SOP sheet as a template? Yeah, I would advise against it, to be honest with you, but everybody can have it. Do I have a template? I kind of don't want you guys to have mine because there's some personal things. Oh, here we go. I actually made a copy for my friend. There, you guys can have the copy I made for his name was Matt. You'll see that. Here's my daily SOP template. Susan, monthly container Y. Identify key priorities for the next month for deep work and maker time. Love that. Love, love, love. Can you have external accountability for your containers? Dude, I hope you do. So we're going to talk about that in just a second, Atiba. I've got some templates for you, as a matter of fact. They're gonna help us not just put that into place, but what I'd like you to do is start enlisting allies. The hardest thing is to have a spouse who's not on board. That's been my, well, how do I say this without? It's just difficult to maintain this without having somebody who supports you in this way. Uh, Kids are probably the second hardest, and they're not trying to ruin your containers. They're just alive, and they need to be kept that way. So enlisting allies can be really, really, really helpful. This is a new buy box for my life. I have dude, I have people I love who have been or are actively being removed from me because no matter what I do, they cross those boundaries. And they're not bad people. There's just certain personality types that, for whatever reason, they almost look at boundaries as an invitation to test. And, depending on where you are in life, I'm like, I love you. I hope life goes well for you. And I will not tolerate that behavior. So we need to be careful about how we engage with some of those fucks. I meant to say folks, not fucks. Forgive my language. It's not a personality type. It's a trauma response. Yeah, I think you're exactly right, Deborah. I've actually thought a lot about this because I have one person who's very close to me who I really love. And I'm like, all right, now's the uncomfortable part. Are we ready for the uncomfortable part? By the way, if you haven't defined all your containers, that's okay. You now know how to define containers. Here's what I'd really like for you to do. I'd like for you to pull up your calendars, start looking at what you can eliminate. Remember, we defined our containers as ideal. Before we even begin putting time on our calendars, I'd like you to begin defining what you can eliminate. Flash forward a couple of weeks, by the way, because you may have allowed yourself into a devastation of chaos that just needs to be attended to, and it is what it is. But what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to look at what your normal weeks look like, assuming that your calendar looks that way. And I'd love for you to start eliminating things. Before we start adding, we want to eliminate. And this isn't going to be something that we finish on this call, but it is a habit that I want you to get into is elimination. Success comes from elimination. It comes from taking away, not from adding. Hermosi talks about this all the time. It's doing more of what works. It's actually doing more of less. It's the less that's important. So we're going to pull up our calendars and we're going to eliminate everything that's unnecessary. And y'all, be ruthless here. Be ruthless here. There's some things that just aren't your problem. There's some things that you just shouldn't be doing. There's some things you committed to that you shouldn't have committed to. Cut it. Cut it. You know what I mean? Like you can still love those folks. You can explain it to them if you want to. Cut it. Kill it with fire. Just allow it. No, your time is so important. And as you look at these containers, and to be frank, if you're looking at the containers I'm looking at, I have more time than most. I'm still pissed off at how little time I have. Anything on your calendar, phase through your calendar and start cutting things. I love that, Deborah. Deborah says, my calendar and my content and courses is quite minimalist already. That's great. So once you've eliminated your calendar, take a look at, and this is my own personal drum to beat, by the way, but take a look at things and then ask yourself, what can I delegate? There are so many things that you do that you should not be doing. And by the way, if you don't have an assistant, that's okay. There's a lot that agentic AI can do. What are the things that if you're doing any check-ins, any reviews, all of that can be delegated and summarized by AI. What can you eliminate? What can you delegate? We're going to take away first before we add. Before we add. Lori, I love the Eisenhower box that you mentioned too. The Eisenhower box, I first was exposed to it in Covey's 7 Habits, but it's the important, not important, urgent, not urgent. That's the grid. And box 1 is where we all live. It's important and it's urgent. Box 2 is the most important box. It's important, but it's not urgent, so it never gets done. And then box 3 and 4 just shouldn't exist. Those are the things. You're eliminating 3 and 4, and then you're going to try to delegate as much as the ones as you possibly can. Yeah, I think I said that right. Now, the thing that I'd like you to do, and again, I don't know if we're going to get this done on this call. I'd like to see your containers added to your calendar. Your morning container, thank you so much, Lori. This is great. Your morning container, I don't care if it's 10 minutes, put it on your calendar, block it off, put it on your calendar, add a little reminder, and copy and paste everything that we just defined. What's the name? What's the location, et cetera? Put it in the description of the calendar event. Add your morning container, add your evening container, set them to recur. If you're not using, tool that allows you to do that, go find a tool, but Google Calendar, Microsoft Calendar, whatever you use, Apple Calendar, they all do this. Add your morning container, add the context. Add your evening container, add the context. Add your weekly containers, set them to recur. It's the same day every week, hopefully. For some people have off schedules. That's okay. You'll figure it out. And we're going to talk about how to protect that in just a minute. Add your monthly container. Take just a minute to do all that. While you're doing that, if you need more time, please take more time. But while your calendar's open, what I'd like you to do is flash forward. Flash forward for the rest of the year. If your containers are already added, when you flash forward, you should actually see your containers against the rest of your schedule. And, some folks might not be as militant with their calendars as I am. And so if you don't see anything, that's okay. But when you flash forward, what I'd like you to start to do is identify risks. Identify risks. You're like, I'm going on vacation. This is my kid's birthday, whatever. What are the risks to your containers as you flash forward? What are the risks? And as you define those risks, we're going to work on container protection. And that's actually our next worksheet. So I'm going to drop this into chat. This gets a little tedious, y'all. It's by design. I'm telling you, this is important. I know this is a pain in the ass, but I'm telling you, it's important. Again, go up to File, click Make a Copy. You'll have your own copy. We're not going to do it on this call because we won't have time. This is why I told you to reserve a little time after the fact. For every single container you defined, I'd like you to define your protection mechanisms. Every single container, what's the name of the container? Is it daily, weekly, monthly, or other? What are the disruptions? Assume disruption, right? My son, yesterday morning, I woke up at 4 a.m. to him projectile vomiting. My morning was spoken for me at that point, right? So kids are a great disruption. Work is a great disruption. What are the disruptions? I know somebody who's a caretaker. What are the disruptions that you just know? And this is going to happen. And the reason we want to outline and define this, by the way, is when it happens and you don't have it defined, it's so stressful. And when you're committed to these containers, it can be so disheartening. But when you've got a plan, you're like, I knew this was going to happen. It's okay. I know exactly what I'm going to do. We're going to identify our disruptions and we're going to install surrogate containers. Our surrogate containers are the containers that we are going to use in the event of a disruption. So our containers are non-negotiable, but they are flexible. Remember, a container is, what was the word that I used? Resilient. Containers are resilient. This is how we make our containers resilient. So for your morning, if I can't wake up at my 4 a.m. time and do it, then right after my kids go to school, I usually have about a half hour, right? Or whatever. I can get it done at lunch. Or whatever it might be true for you. What's your surrogate A, your preferred surrogate? And what's your surrogate B, your fallback surrogate? So for me, my surrogate A is right after I take my kids to school. My surrogate B, my fallback, is probably around lunchtime or maybe right after work. And my surrogate C, preservation, this is just the thing that you do to make sure you can check your box and say, I still did it. This is so important psychologically. It goes back to the Seinfeld box. It's don't break the chain. Once we've broken the chain, the likelihood that we allow the chain to be broken again increases by something like 1,000x. The specific there is wrong, but the gist is right, by the way. It basically guarantees failure again. So you're going to have a backup plan. You're going to have a backup plan A. You're going to have a backup plan B. You're going to have a backup plan C. Backup plan C could be from my phone in 60 seconds. I'm just going to make sure that all my tasks have been documented, right? I don't care what it is. You're also going to allow yourself sacrifices. Allow yourself sacrifices. If for what I said, I don't take meetings Monday, every now and again, I run into an issue where that just, for whatever reason, I can't attend to that. Whatever amount of time I end up losing on my Monday, I take from another day. If your containers, y'all, I want you to be radical. For the guy I mentioned to you who doesn't make money unless he's recruiting, it doesn't matter for him what happens. He'll cancel. It doesn't matter the meeting. He cancels it. You tell me. I'm going to cancel meetings. I'm going to sacrifice intensity. I'm going to not, I'm going to allow myself not to go inbox zero. I'm going to allow myself to skip the gym. I'm going to allow myself to whatever. What are the sacrifices that you're willing to make in order to protect this container? And then, if you want to be real radical, print it and sign it. And you might think like, oh, Kasim, that's really dramatic. You know what? Try me. Try me. Take the time it takes to do something like that and see whether or not you take it more seriously. And you'll do it for every single container that you have. Have a protection mechanism for every single container you have. Know what's going to happen when failure comes. And guess what? Then it's not failure. Then it's a setback. This will weaponize you. The thing I want to say about surrogates, it's continuity over intensity. You don't need to do everything that you normally do inside of that container. You just need to make sure that something that it's touched, that you're maintaining continuity. Here's what I would like you to do. And mine are not good, by the way. They're just, they're heavily GPT'd. I wrote a template for you, and then I asked ChatGPT to modify that template for different roles. I'm going to give everybody this doc. Again, go up, file, make a copy. I'd like you on this call, you're going to draft your container declaration. You don't have to use mine. Draft your container declaration and wait to modify it. I would recommend using whatever you use, Claude or Chat or whatever, to modify it per rules. To all of your subordinates, you'll have one message. I'm not telling you this is good, bad, or indifferent. It depends on who works for you. This is actually pretty generic. But there's a couple of things that I think are pretty strategic. It's, whoever I'm talking to, hey, Martin, I'm making a shift to protect a few important time blocks that I will now be treating as sacred time on my calendar. I think that's important. That to me brokers no argument. I'm not here to talk to you about why this is important. This is sacred to me. End of story. For visibility, I will be unavailable during these windows. And you can have as many of these as you want, right? Like add and add and add. I would only add time that's relevant to the role. You may see me unavailable during these periods. That's intentional. Protecting this time helps. And then I always want to give people the why. So I'm going to show up better. I'm going to be more present. If there's a conflict, please be proactive and let me know. And then we'll figure out that conflict together. We'll find an alternative. I'm setting the expectation that I'm not going to backpedal on my sacred time. We'll find an alternative. Thanks for helping protect this. This is where we enlist allies. It directly improves how I lead and support you. By the way, I just made this about you. I'm telling you, I'm going to be a better boss. I'm going to be a better supervisor. I'm going to be better whatever you are. You're going to send this to everybody who works for you, everybody you work with, everybody you work for. If you're a consultant, by the way, send this to your clients and everybody who loves you. All of your family and friends should get some variation of this message. What I'd do if I was you, steal from Perry, is I'd write your template generically, get the words out to where you like them, and then have Chat or Claude modify it per role. So like, all right, now write this to my husband or wife. Now write this for my kids, if you have adult kids that can be enlisted. What you're really looking for are allies. I would ask for that. I'd especially ask for that here. With your family and friends, I'd ask for allies. Man, I could really use some help here. I could really use reinforcement. I could use somebody, And what's really fun is you'll see a lot of people being like, oh gosh, I want to do that too. They'll enlist with you. You're looking for allies. The other thing you're looking for, and this is the hard part, you're going to find people that push back on this boundary right away. Like Deborah said, that might be a trauma response. Know who they are. Know who they are, because the other thing that I'd like you to do right now on this call is start defining your boundary enforcement. I have some written for you. Again, these aren't good. They're generic, very gentle. Here's why I like these. It's really, really, really nice to have sound bites. Copy paste. Something predefined that goes to everybody. Have gentle sound bites, have clear sound bites, and then have like, hey, I'm not putting up with this. This is a boundary. I like the words, this is a boundary. You know what's nice about the words, this is a boundary, is you're being very clear as to how you feel in regards to their action. Because there's nothing to say their action is wrong, offensive, in any way negative, until you say you're crossing a boundary. And the thing that I think is really important for everybody, and I learned this in Front Row Dads from John Vroman, who's one of the best leaders I've ever known in my entire life. Your boundaries are your responsibility. Your boundaries are your responsibility. As much as that sucks for all of us, you would hope and wish that your friends and family and loved ones will adopt your boundaries. It doesn't always happen. That's rule number one. Rule number two that I also learned from John, all boundaries have consequences. A boundary without a consequence is no longer a boundary, right? How could it be? You crossed my boundary. What's the consequence? Well, nothing. Please don't do that again. That's not a boundary. That's a wish. That's wishful thinking. I really wish people would be more respectful of my time. Well, go fuck yourself. Nobody cares about your time. They care about their time. You're not important enough to them. And this is why you'll notice the more successful people get, the more news there is out there about them being jerks. I was watching this video. I like to watch basketball clips when I'm wasting time. I doom scroll basketball highlights. And every now and again, it won't be players playing. It'll be players doing things that are whatever, which to me is not very interesting. But I was watching this thing of LeBron James, like this guy rushes on stage and they were comparing like Shaq to Jordan to Barkley to LeBron and how they interact with fans. And there was this moment where like this guy rushes to change and like LeBron steps back and puts his hands behind his back. And I remember thinking like, what an out of context clip. I'm not going to hug every human if I'm LeBron James, I'm not hugging every random human that runs at me, right? There has to be a boundary at some point. The more successful you get, the more people are going to encroach upon your boundaries. Y'all, I'm about 0.3% famous, okay? In a very, very, very small world, usually traffic and conversion, there's probably about 7 people that really want to talk to me. I rank nowhere on the fame meter. And I've had people follow me into the bathroom. I've had people find out where my kids go to school, swear to God. I've had a guy approach me in a locker room while I was in a towel, and nobody knows who I am. So as the fame meter rises, so too does the encroachment upon your time, your energy, your attention, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You'll hear things like, oh man, Atiba's a real dick. you know? And it's like, well, maybe I have to be, dude. Maybe it's because I just wrote this book, I just did this thing, and more people want something from you. You have to have sound bites, you have to have protections, you have to have boundaries in place, and you have to be able to enforce them. Boundaries without consequences aren't boundaries at all. They're not boundaries at all. So as you're building your container, you're planning for failure so that there is no such thing as failure. And you're also about to make your declaration. What I'd love from everybody is, and I've been trying to buy you time as I'm talking, I'd love your declaration to be written right now. Write your declaration right now. Write the generic version, have ChatGPT customize it for your roles. I want to send them today. I want people to know, hey, my morning container and evening container, you don't have to explain that to people at work, by the way. Your mornings and your evenings are none of their business. That goes to friends and family, right? Your workday container goes to whoever, employees, bosses, peers, clients. Explain the containers that need to be explained. You're not explaining yourself. You're explaining the new reality to them. Once you have that new reality, plan for the pushback, plan for the failure, plan for the people that are encroach upon your boundaries. Have that conversation in your head and know what you're going to say. For some of y'all, I met some of y'all's moms. It's your mom. You know what I mean? Like your mom will, or whoever it ends up being. I've got we're not friends anymore. God bless them. But I've got a friend who was the dude, we got to go to the bar, right? Like that buddy. And if you don't go to the bar, he's got a whole slew of words for you and a bunch of reasons that your masculinity is being questioned and whatever. And he can just pressure you and he can whatever. What I would do if you've got that friend or that person in your life, I'd preempt it. I'd be like, hey, buddy, love you, mean it. And I need you to know this is important to me. I'm not going to do these things that we normally do. If you ask me to do those things, I need to put a boundary in place, and that'll probably mean spending less time together. I really don't want to do that because I love you so much. We're going to write those declarations together. So what might be a really good use of our time is right now, this moment, write the people that need to hear this message. I think there's two columns. There's allies and there's detractors. So write your ally column. Who are the people that you know they're going to be on board? That's my homie. That's my friend. That's the love of my life. That's my whoever. These are my allies. They get a different message. Sometimes allies will surprise you. If you're an employee and you have a boss, bet money if that person isn't just an absolute imbecile, they'll be very, very supportive of this type of behavior. It's like, hey, I'm going to do better at my job. I wish an employee would come to me and be like, hey, this is my protected time. This is my deep work time. It's like, that's awesome. Some rules can't account for that, right? A firefighter can't go to this fire chief and say, hey, just so you know, any fires between noon and 3, you got to wait because that's my deep work time. So adjust life according to your realities. And I think you'll be surprised sometimes at who your allies may be. But I'd love for you to have your two columns. Who are your allies? And then who are the people that need to be contained? And these aren't bad people, by the way. Sometimes they're the people that love you the most. Sometimes it's the people that love you the most that you need to have boundaries from. Khalil Gibran is one of my favorite writers in the world. He wrote a book called The Prophet that's just, there's no limit to the depth of this book. It's beautiful. And he talks about love. And the analogy for love is the pillars of a temple. And what you'll notice about the pillars of a temple is the farther apart they are, the stronger the structure of the temple. Because when pillars get too close, the center of gravity is too high, and that temple will topple. So close relationships, let's say, aren't necessarily close. They actually strong relationships have some space. Those are hard conversations to have. Let's have those ahead of time. Cheryl said, add this meeting to today's gratitude journal. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. Lori said it's about honoring yourself. Yeah, I absolutely agree. We get what we tolerate, dude. Oh, that's so true. We teach people how to teach us. How do you have any best practices or frameworks you share on how to best utilize the time allocation for these containers? Yeah, I want to talk about time allocation at the end. The Prophet by Khalil Gibran, Adrian. I don't know how to spell Khalil. He's interesting. He's a Lebanese Christian, which has its own, from an anthropological perspective, it's helpful to understand people's backstories. Like Solzhenitsyn, understand the backstory because it gives you so much depth as to where they came from and why they're writing what they're writing. I bet you I own more copies of that book than any other book. Every time I see it, I buy it. I bet you I have 12 copies. Well, I've given a bunch of them away. I want to talk about time utilization at the end. So I'll get there. Promise. How is everybody done with their declarations? Do you have your list of who needs to get it? Do you have your template? Does anybody need more time with that? What I'd love from you is a commitment that you're sending that today. I'm going to everybody in my life and I'm letting them know this is important to me and I'm doing this. This is important to me and I'm doing this. Let me go back to my slides and remember where I am. A note I had for myself, you're not asking for permission. there might be one or two, like, if you have a job and you have to ask your boss for a specific amount of time, that might be the caveat, but what I'm really trying to say is from a root perspective, the messaging and narrative is not asking for permission, it's informing people of change. The last thing I'd like to talk about, and then a way that I'd like to galvanize us together is The Gap in the Gain. If you've not read the book, The Gap in the Gain, which is a Dan Sullivan book, I think Dan is just one of the smartest people who's ever lived. I got to have lunch with him and his wife Babs. And a lot of people let you down. He did not. God, was he just so there was so much wisdom. I felt like I was sitting with Yoda. Like he couldn't help it. Everything he said was so funny. And the whole lunch, I don't know if this is out of necessity or if this is just their relationship, but like Babs was like dressing his taco and feeding him and handing him his napkin. Like he was like being shepherded through life. And I think it's just because he's so smart that, he's like Einstein needed to be driven to work. He wrote a book called The Gap in the Gain. And the point that he made in The Gap in the Gain, which is just absolutely brilliant, is we are taught, trained, and conditioned to look at the distance between us and the goal. That's the map we talked about in the beginning. That's the goal setting. So, I want $100 million net to me after taxes. I want $100 million. Post-divorce, I'm worth $7 million net. No business valuations included. Real money. That means I have a $93 million gap. A $93 million gap for me feels insurmountable. You might be like, Kasim, you talk about money a lot. Yeah, I care about money a lot. I like money because it's quantifiable. There's proof. There's just data. That's the gap. From 7 million to 93 million is effectively adjusted for margin of error. It's all of it, right? It's $100 million gap, basically. It's a rounding error. That's the gap. My gain, I was raised by a blind single mother on welfare in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I didn't just come from zero. I was subterranean, y'all. I was hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt with no education, no prospects. I had nothing. That's it. You want to talk about a freaking gain. So what am I going to focus on? Am I going to focus on the gap or am I going to focus on the gain? And the thing that's really interesting is as I focus on the gain, I'm like, that was actually harder. Going from hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to zero, I swear to God, was harder than going from zero to Deca Millions. Most people I think that have done it will tell you that. Harder. So now I'm like, if we focus on the gain, that's the way that we galvanize ourselves towards action. Here's how I think we focus on the gain for ourselves and for each other. The containers that you've set up today, if you want to follow me on this journey, and this is why I wanted them to be empty. You might say, dude, I need to work out every single day. I know a lot of people like that. I think that's great. God bless you. I think that's great. And if 365 days, if you worked out 362 days of them, awesome. That's what you did with your morning container. What I'd rather see, though, and this is the problem with habits, this is why I've kind of navigated away from being so rigid and stringent with my habits. One day you're going to wake up, like my buddy Atiba woke up and said, I have to write a book. Atiba wrote a book on delegation. It'll be the second best book on delegation ever written. I love you, buddy. I'm writing a book on delegation, but he beat me to the punch and it pisses me off, so I like to make fun of him. You'll wake up one day and say, I've got a book in my heart and my soul that has to come out. And maybe your morning container goes to the book. You might wake up one day and be like, I do not feel like doing anything today. And maybe your morning container goes to watching Netflix. Maybe a kid gets sick. Maybe you decide you want to learn something. The thing about that which inspires you and the awe that you feel in life is I think you should follow it. And what I really like about containers instead of rigid, stringent, rule-based habits is containers allow for you to be flexible and transient, and they allow for you to move. And so is your morning container mostly used for workout? Great. That's awesome. But if one day you decide like, God, you know what? I really want to read that book Kasim talked about. I want to go read The Prophet, and you don't have any other time, and you swap that out in the normal framework of goal setting, you failed. And if you fail, every failure increases the propensity for the subsequent failure by 1,000 times. In the container setting, you're allowed to be like, oh, you know what? I'm going to spend the next week reading this book. And then if the book doesn't grab you or whatever, you go right back to whatever it is that you want to go back to. So I'd really love for us to continue to think about the containers as empty spaces because it's a paradigm thing, y'all. That's all it is. You can fill it. You're going to fill up the space. I promise you. Especially you. You're on a call that started in the morning on New Year's Eve. You're that person. You know what I mean? Like you're going to be productive. I promise. Keep the container empty in your mind. And this is why I like morning and evening containers, by the way, because in the evening, you can define what's going to happen in the morning. Christine Marie does this really, really, really well. Her morning vertical alignments, which are long, they're pretty significant. Sometimes she works because sometimes she's like, what I need to do to get most aligned is this tension I feel in having written this proposal. I just need to do that. And so she gives herself, she'll still do her prayer and her meditation and those things, and then she'll work. You know what I mean? Or she'll make an important phone call or whatever. Allowing the containers to be empty spaces in your mind that you fill, it gives you this potency, this power. You feel the capability of every day. The capability of every day is charged by these available containers. And I think the more that we do that, the more in control we feel of everything that we're trying to accomplish. This is the arithmetic I'd like for you to do. If you want to, you don't have to. I tried to create a worksheet out of this and it just got ugly. Take every goal on your list of goals, and all of you have goals because you're all peak performers. Take every goal on your list of goals and figure out approximately how much time every goal takes, which, by the way, every single goal is demonstrable. And if you don't know what it is, ask ChatGPT. The average book is 60,000 words. You can write 1,000 words in 45 minutes. And then it takes, I don't know what, 90 minutes to edit 1,000 words. So between writing and editing, you can back into how long it takes to write your book, or how long it takes to lose a pound, or how long it takes to earn this amount of money. Every goal you have has a certain amount of time, a cost for admission. Every goal. If it doesn't, you haven't defined your goal well enough. Take every goal you have, identify the amount of time that goal is going to cost you. That's a cost. You're paying in time, and then calculate all that time and ask yourself, do I have enough time reserved in 2026 to accomplish my goals? That's what's really interesting is if I look back at my life, and it was like clockwork towards the end of December every single year, I had these insanely lofty goals, but then I wouldn't make any room to accomplish them. Time is the cost of admission. That's why I obsessed over this so much when I was really thinking about, God, how do I help people? How do I really help people? The thing to do is to help people help themselves by setting time aside. That's what the container is. When you have this time set aside, now all of those, and by the way, as you start knocking those goals down, the time needs to be it needs to be flexible, right? So, depending on what your goal is, you might have a fitness goal. What happens when you hit that fitness goal in May? You just keep going to the gym. It becomes routine. You start to put yourself on a maintenance schedule and then reallocate that time to something else, something more important. That's why I like the container model. The container model for me is rigid where it needs to be rigid and flexible where it needs to be flexible. So, and again, you don't have to come with me on that thesis. This is my opinion. This is just what I think. What I'd love to see happen, I really feel like we need each other. I feel like humanity's lost the campfire. It's why everybody's so fucking political. It really is. Jordan Peterson talks about this. He says that when you lose God, and God is what he would define as the superordinate principle, and we've lost God from a Nietzschean standpoint. I'm not saying God doesn't exist. I'm saying, like, as a society, regardless of what you believe, you could be hyper religious, you could be hyper atheist. You would have to, I think, acknowledge that societally speaking, God is no longer the superordinate principle. And when you lose God, whatever's next most important takes that place. And the next most important thing, generally speaking, is political. It's why everybody's so freaking political. We've lost the campfire. If you think about it on an anthropological scale, flash back 1,000 years ago, flash back every night in every society, every human did the same thing. They gathered around a campfire. It's built into us to be in community. It's built into us to have people. It's built into us to, you know what I mean? To commune. It's in the Bible, wherever two or more are gathered. Like every night, every society did the exact same thing. Cross culture, religion, continent, it didn't matter. Every human is epigenetically coded to gather around a campfire every night. When was the last time you did it? When was the last time you actually had community? And we just had Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's, Hanukkah, Eid, whatever. Even with that, we don't do it. I think we need it. I think we really, 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 really need community. And I don't think that this is an adequate replacement for the campfire. By the way, we're on Zoom. You know what I mean? This isn't great, but it's better than nothing. So I've got a free community. It will be free forever. There's no ascension, upsell, or charge. If you want to join my community, please do. If you don't, there's a bunch of other free communities out there. It's in school right now. I'm probably going to move it off of school. But what I'd love to see is us measuring the gains, not the gaps. So what I'd like to do in my community is every week I'd like to create a thread, and I'm making a note for myself to do this right now, where people go in and all we do is just report on the gain, which, as far as I'm defining it here, is maintaining your container. I don't care what you use your containers for. But it would be awesome if you knew from an accountability perspective, which is what somebody asked. Every week I'm going to go in and there's going to be a group of people that are rooting for me. And I'm going to say, hey, y'all, nailed it. Kept some of my containers, adhered to it. Not just that, but I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. Imagine if you had a place where you could go and you could report on your wins. That's another thing that's really interesting. I've always felt uncomfortable reporting on my wins. I think a lot of people do. It feels weird. It feels weird to talk about when you do something awesome, when you do something great. But if we made a container for that, you know what I mean? Like if there was a place where you could go and you could be like, y'all, you wouldn't believe what I just did. And the other thing that's really interesting too is I think there's a personality type, the type of personality that would show up on New Year's Eve at a morning call and improve themselves, that is really fired up by other people's wins. There are people that try to pull you down. I've seen them. I know them. They're all on Reddit, by the way. Mean little incels, all of them. And they're not going to be in our community, right? We're going to have a community where people are actually fired up by your successes. I'm inspired, man. Anytime I'm in a room of people that are just smarter than me and better than me in every way, I just walk away full. I walk away jazzed. I walk away juiced. And the thing that I found about those people only every time is they want that for you too. That's the type, that's the type. The people, Hormozi quotes this a lot. You're never, ever, ever, ever going to get looked down upon by trying to accomplish something that somebody else has already accomplished by that person. It'll be other people. If you're a little overweight, go to the gym and see who's the most supportive. It's the people that are ultra fit, the people that are actually sitting there doing it and want you to do it with them. That's what I want. I want a community of people that are really just supportive and active. And I'd love for us to report on our gains. So I think that can happen weekly. I think that can happen as part of a weekly container. I'd love for you to be a part of it. I'd love to recapture as much of the campfire as we can. I do think that that's really, really important, especially with the way AI is going. I'm really optimistic about AI in a lot of ways. And I think we're all going to have to figure out what to do with our time. I think there's the crisis of meaning will only amplify itself, which is actually a beautiful segue for, wait for it, I'd like to invite you to another free call. There will never be a sales pitch at the end of these, by the way. I hope you guys, I just want to keep saying that because I feel like I'm always going to have my guard up when I'm on a Zoom. There's a young lady on the call who I'm in love with, and I've referenced quite a few times. She has created something called the Knowing Framework. Some of you have already been through it. It might be the most impactful thing I've ever done for myself personally. I asked her to do it for my community last year. I say 2025. She's going to do it for you on January 7th at this exact same time. She's going to go through the light version. The thing that I think might be most important for all of us is to really begin to understand who we are. Who are you really? There was this really interesting exercise. It started with a comparison between Europeans and Americans. Because if you ask an American who we are, we're like, oh, I'm a marketer, right? I'm an attorney, I'm a doctor. And the Europeans are like, well, I like to play soccer or I go to the ballet. You know what I mean? Like the work is not a defining mode for them. And so if you strip away roles, if you strip away father, employer, entrepreneur, author, speaker, what am I really? Who am I really? You know what I mean? And I don't know how to answer that. And Christine she's the best question asker I've ever seen in my entire life. It's a series of questions, and she just asks you question after question after question, and it helps you get clear on who you are. And getting clear on who you are, by the way, is a really important way to start getting clear on how to use your containers. It's an extraordinarily valuable exercise. It's not easy. I'll say maybe the opposite. It can be really hard. And not hard in terms of tedious, just hard in terms of looking in the mirror or asking yourself hard questions or going back and really reconciling, why we act the way we act and some of our trauma responses. Martin, yeah, we open that. We have a mastermind, you guys, for entrepreneurs that want to learn how to delegate. Basically, it's called OPT Mastery, and that is open. I'll send you a link. Would love to have you as a member. It's also free for all Pareto clients. That's my little sales pitch. It's not an ascension, though. Christine Marie, are you here? And do you want to talk about knowing it all?
I think you did such a good job setting the stage there. It is so easy when people ask, who are you? It's easy to use those kind of defining labels. And so in peeling back the labels, it's a scary thing to do. And so this whole process, Kasim, I think you actually set this stage when we had our first workshop for your 3X Freedom community. It's actually a really brave thing that we can do to enter the arena. And Theodore Roosevelt talks about the arena in a really profound way. That's the place where you actually have the mar and the grime, and it's, man, that's doing the work. Somebody asked the question in the chat, like, what does doing the deep work mean? This is an example of that. There's so many different manifestations of doing deep work, and it looks different for all of us because we all have different stories and different experiences. And so, Kasim, you talking about the container effectively is akin to going into the arena. But for so many, they'll exist on the outskirts of the arena, of the container, and kind of point and be the critic. And so being in this space where we celebrate the wins, where we talk about doing the deep work, and really champion each other, because it is lonely, especially for all of us who are kind of the entrepreneurial mind. Being on this call, all my sisters, my whole family's together this week, and they're all at a coffee shop right now, and I'm like, I'm doing this call to set goals for next year. But it's lonely, and I'm just Kasim, thank you so much for creating this space. I know we're all so much better for it. And knowing really is the thing that has changed my life at a core level because for so long I lived in reaction, in response to who everyone else said I should be. And it was the narratives in childhood that were told to me who I should be instead of actually taking control of my life. Someone else said that of the morning. It's like remembering who I am. And so a lot of this work is shedding the layers, like Michelangelo when he was asked, "How did you create David?" It was removing who David was not. So we
Mhm.
need to go through that process of removal and elimination to return, and then we can create and build on top of that.
I'd love for everybody to be there. It's the same day, same time, and I'd like to continue to do this, y'all. I'd like to continue to meet. That's an invitation. I'd like to say the words "no motive," but I don't really mean that. I mean no financial motive. No, there's a bunch of places that I make money, I promise you. This isn't one of them. I like the 3X Freedom community because somebody said something recently that really struck me. They said, "There's nowhere you can go anymore where you're not expected to spend money, except maybe the library." Like every place that you walk into, it's just like, all right, hands out and now justify your existence. And I'd like to change that a little bit. So if this feels like the right place for you, I'd love to see you join the community. To be honest with you, I'd love to see you participate. A lot of wallflowers. God bless you if you're one of them, by the way. I know it's hard to pipe up and assert yourself, but, if you have something to bring to the table, there are some people doing it now. Drop value, bring it. If I feel like you're snaking from the community, I'll kick you right out. I've been doing it nonstop. We've been banning people who come in and get super salesy. But if you've got something to bring, something to give, if you've got a way, the way that I'd like to think about it is if you have the way to love on people, if you have something to bring to somebody's life that feels like love, bring that. Bring that to the community. Christine has knowing. We're bringing it to the community. What do you have? What do you have that you're willing to give? There better not be a sales pitch at the end of it. I don't want step one, step two, and for step three, join my bullshit. But if you've got all step threes and you're willing to give it up, that's what we're doing. We're just building a place where people can go to give. And what the other end of give, by the way, is get. It's okay to show up and be like, hey, I really need help. I really need insert this problem here. That's the fun thing about the campfires. I think that's what the campfire was for. The campfire was for us showing up and being like, I don't know what to do about this thing. And then you had the whole community around you. You had a group of people around you that actually cared about you. And the way to do that is iterative. The way to build community is iterative. Because if I show up one time and I get a little out of it, my wall comes down a little. And then I show up again and I get a little more out of it, my wall comes down a little. And I show up again and I get a little more out of it, my wall comes down a little. And you think to yourself, like, okay, that's a tedious way to build community. Yes, and that's for the first round. What you'll find with I saw this with Front Row Dads. If you're a father and you haven't joined Front Row Dads, you don't love your children. Just kidding, but you should go join. I'm not an affiliate, by the way. I just love the group. I joined Front Row Dads and I walk into this group that's already extraordinarily galvanized, loving, open, empathic, sharing, giving. And it's because the first group of 10 dads did that. They built it. And then everybody that came in adopted and co opted the culture. We can build that culture together. We can build something where it's give. It's give without intention. Give first, give last, give more. Give, 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 give. And if you need to come get. And when other people join, we get to own and control that culture. And the one thing I keep hearing now, which I actually really like, it lets me know that we're on the right track because I keep seeing and hearing people being like, is this for real? Like people jumping into the community being like, are they for real? Like there's nothing, where's the catch? And there is one. I don't want to say it's without motive because the motive is the community. I want it too. You know what I mean? Like I want to be around a group of people that are striving for something better, that hold themselves accountable to a higher standard and that are willing to show up with something that looks and smells and feels like love. And that's a scary word to use. I used to say heart because I found people were a little less repelled by it, but that's really what we all want. And the thing that's struck me about goal setting, I was studying goal setting this week in preparation for this call, and all goals fall into four categories: health, wealth, joy, and love. Health, wealth, joy, and love. Find a goal on your goal sheet and prove me wrong. Health, wealth, joy, and love. You might be like, no, 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 no. I want to be fit. And it's like, no, what you really want is something between health and love. And what's really interesting about health, wealth, joy, and love is if you distill them further from a psychological perspective, they all will ultimately distill down into love. Every human on the planet just wants love, wants to get it, wants to give it. And maybe you disagree with me. That's fine. Don't join my community because I'm going to get, the older I get, y'all, I am full on midlife crisising. Like I can't stop. It's getting really weird. And so I'm just going to leave further and further and further and further in this direction. And for anybody that feels good to and for, I'd love for you to join me. And if this doesn't feel right, by the way, that's okay. Thematically, this might not be aligned for you. I really mean this with every piece of me, every atom of my being. Go start your own, go start your own. Go plant a flag right now. Go post something to your social channel of choice or send it to your favorite message thread and say, hey, we lost the campfire. I'd love to get it back. Start it for whoever you want to start it for. You might be a single mom. You're like, I want to do this for single moms. You might be a veteran. You want to do it for veterans. That can be helpful. That thread, my thread is entrepreneurial. I resonate with entrepreneurs. That's just the way my heart beats. Your heart might beat for a group. Go do that thing for that group of people. We've lost the campfire and we need it back. That's the thing that I think is maybe most important. This is the most exciting time to be alive, and there's going to be some changes that I think are really devastating. And I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of time on their hands, and people with time can be dangerous. I'm that way too. You give an entrepreneur, you know what happens when you give an entrepreneur time without productivity is addiction. Entrepreneurs are either addicts or wildly successful. And you see that when you're in a mastermind with some of these people that have just made the single common denominator in my mastermind is addiction. Joe Polish, Genius Network, same thing. He's one of my best friends. He very open about his struggles with addiction, runs Genius Recovery, helps a lot of people in that way. I think that the answer can be something like community. And so I'm really excited for Christine's talk on Wednesday because I think that she's the antidote for a lot of this. I think what you found, Christine, or what you created with the Knowing Framework is really, really helpful and really impactful as it pertains to addressing this crisis of meaning. Because we've been taught that our value is rooted in what we do. Our value is rooted in the verb. What do you do? That's the first question in everybody's mouth. What do you do? And what happens when do is gone? What happens when the machines do the do? This became a soda commercial. Our value needs to be rooted in who we are. And I don't know who I am still. I'm getting there. I'm getting closer. Christine's helping me, and I'd love for her to help you guys too. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for showing up live. If you watch the recordings, love you, mean it. And hope you get to show up live next time. We're going to try to do a lot more of this. Again, if you want to contribute, if you want to host, if you want to give, jump into the community. It's free forever. And hope everybody has a great, great, great 2026. Please don't forget to install your containers, send out your declaration, and then let's jump in the community every week and celebrate our wins. And if you fall off, that's okay. You have a plan now for falling. And you have a community that'll catch you. Love you guys.